Let me tell you a story about my sister. I had an older sister, and she was really smart. And I thought I was smarter than she was, but I was wrong. And then she was really tough, and I thought I was tougher than she was, but I was wrong. And here's how I found out my sister was a superior human being. We were bickering one day, typical bickering. I was standing in my doorway, she was standing in her bedroom doorway. I would say something rude, she'd say something cleverly rude. I'd say something rude, she'd say something cleverly rude. When one day, she broke the rules and walked across the hallway and entered my room, which was forbidden. And she looked at me and she said, "Look, I'm sick and tired of all this bickering." I said, "Well, quite frankly, I am too." She said, "Let's call a truce, no more bickering." I said, "Well, that's a great idea." She said, "Well, let's shake on it." I said, "Sure." So I stuck out my hand. She grabbed my hand and she squeezed viciously down on my hand. And then she looked me right in the eye and she said, "However, whoever is mean to the other person first has to suffer a wicked punishment." I said, "Oh yeah, make it a good one." She said, "I've got it. Whoever is mean to the other person first has to take off all their clothes and run naked around the outside of the house." I said, "Well, have no fear. I will never be mean to you again because I could not possibly suffer through public nudity." "Great," she said, and she went back to her room. Well, the next morning I woke up and I was transformed. I was lying in bed and the first thought in my mind, which had never occurred before, the first thought was, I love my sister. What nice thing can I do for her today? So I hopped out of bed with enthusiasm, ran into her room, looked around, and she had one of those old fish tanks that had dried out and gotten smelly. And I thought, I'll clean that. I take it out to the backyard, I hose it down, I take every little piece out and clean each one. And then after school, I run down to the pet store, I get a couple of fish, run back home, beat her home, plop them into her fish tank, get it all set up. And when she comes home, I'm in her room. And I go, "Look what I did for you, because I, your brother, love you." And she looks at me and she goes, "So what?" And I'm like, "Oh, she had a bad day today. I'll just be extra nice to her." So the next day I wake up and I look up in the air and I'm like, yes, I love my sister. So I run across the hall and I look in her room and I look around and she has one of those old doll houses that's kind of messed up. And it's a kind with a hinge down the middle. So I open it up and I paint the outside and I glue all the little pieces of furniture together and I paint the walls in there and I get it perfectly set up just the way she would really love it. She comes home from school, I'm there. And I go, "Look what I did for you, because I, your brother, think you're a marvelous sister." And she looks at me and she goes, "Big deal." And I'm like, whoa, she's still having a bad day. So next morning I wake up and I'm like, yeah, I love her. So I go in her bedroom, I look around, she has a big pile of smelly laundry. And I'm like, I'll wash that. So I wash her laundry, iron what needs to be ironed, hang it up perfectly spaced in her closet the way she demands. And when she comes home from school that day, I open her closet door and I go, "Look what I did for you, because I, your brother, think you were the greatest, grandest sister in the world." And she looks at me and she goes, "What do you want, a medal?" And I was like, okay. Next day is Saturday. I wake up, I'm lying in bed and I'm like, I don't think I love my sister today. But I don't want to bicker either. So I'm hanging out in my room till about lunchtime. When I get hungry and I walk down the hallway and I'm just going to go into the kitchen, when I look over into the living room and I see my sister taking an afternoon nap on the couch. And when she sleeps with her mouth wide open because she has bad allergies. So when I saw that open mouth, I had a great idea. So I ran back into my room and I opened my closet door and I got something only I knew about. I had one of those big gallon jars, and in it I had about 100 big Florida cockroaches. And I had this cockroach collection because I had this really big Lego collection, and I used to make this little medieval walled city called Roachville. And then you get a Hot Wheels car, you take a roach, you put it on there, get your sister's nail polish when she isn't looking, write a name on the back of the roach, and then you scotch tape it on there, and you get about 4 or 5 of those, and then you have roaches drive to Roachville, and you drive your roaches around, and you have roaches go shopping, roaches go to the movies, roaches have roach rage. So, at any rate, I take that jar and I give it a good shake, and they all kind of wake up, and I reach and I pull one out, and it says Zippy on the back. And I look at him, I go, Zippy, this is not going to be good for you. What's he know? He's a roach. So I sneak back down to the living room. My sister's still on the couch, mouth still open. I reach out, I aim, and I let him go. Straight down. Hits her on the lip, bounces up, right in the mouth. By then, I turn around and I dash down the hallway and I dive into my bedroom, and then I just listen deliciously as she's going, and then a moment later, I hear a shoe go whack, splat, and I'm like, ooh, not good for Zippy. And then I'm in my room, and then I hear thump, thump, thump down the hallway, and it's my sister. And she comes into my room, and she goes, there's only one person in this house that's sick enough to do what just happened to me. I'm like, that's right, that would be me. She goes, now you have to suffer the wicked punishment. I'm like, oh, I forgot about that. She goes, do it or I'll tell Mom, and it will be worse. I said, okay, I'll do it. So she goes down into the living room. I take off all my clothes. I yell out, ready! And I run screaming naked down the hallway, out the back sliding glass doors, dash as fast as a boy could run all the way around the house. I get back to the back door. Click, she's locked the back door. I pound on the door, let me in. She's not letting me in. I run to the window, she's locked the window. I dash to the front door, she beat me to the front door. And now a very naked, desperate boy is jumping up and down on the front porch. I don't know what to do next. So I look over at the neighbor's yard, the pagoda house. I'm like, there's some laundry on the line. I don't know what that stuff is, but I've got to wear it. So I dash nakedly across the neighbor's yard, and I'm pulling laundry off the line when Mrs. Pagoda comes outside and yells at me, what are you, some kind of sick kid? And I'm like, ah! I turn around, I dash back across their yard, still desperately don't know what to do yet. We have these bushes in front of our house, so I dive behind the bushes, and I squat down there, covering myself with leaves and twigs for the rest of the day. That evening, my father comes home from work. So he's driving the car up the driveway when his naked son jumps out of a bush in front of the car. My father hits the brakes, and I come hobbling over, and I'm just crying. And I'm saying, she is so mean, she is so wicked. My father rolls down the window, and he goes, who are you talking about? I'm like, Betsy, she's the meanest sister in the world. He said, well, let me get this straight. He goes, did she take off all your clothes? I said, no, I did that. He went, uh-huh. He said, did she throw you naked out of the house? I went, oh, no, I ran naked out of the house. And then my father just looked at me so pathetically, and he went, did your older sister trick you again? I said, I think so. He said, don't you realize you will never be as smart as your sister? I said, no. He said, well, now get in the house and get some clothes on. You're embarrassing me out here naked in the driveway. So I go in the house. I get some clothes on, which I liked. And then my father yells out, Jack, get in the living room this instant. So I go down to the living room. And he goes, apologize to your sister, which I did. And then I turned around. I went back up the hall. I got my journal, and I opened it. And I wrote, it was worth it all. I got to drop the roach in her mouth. That was everything I've ever wanted. Hi, I'm Jack Gantos, again. Now, I've already told you that sister story. Here is what you heard when you heard the sister story. You heard a polished story. But you know what? It didn't start that way. It started in a journal, and it was a big mess. So here is what I had to learn and what I have in Writing Radar just for you. It's called The Elements of Writing, or How to Organize a Really Good Story from Beginning, Middle to End. So when you start writing your story and you go, okay, this is really a great story, but it just sounds like it's falling apart bit by bit. The beginning doesn't feel like a good beginning. The ending feels like the beginning. It's all mixed up. Well, right here, this is where you solve it. So let me just tell you that sister story and how I broke it down. Now, remember, characters, me and my sister. So that's where the story opens. Me and my sister standing right across from each other in the hallway and bickering back and forth. Setting, the hallway, our house. Again, nothing at all unusual. Problem, bickering, routine stuff with brothers and sisters. Situation, we call a truce. Now, that's the beginning of the story. Look at what we've captured. Do we have the characters? Check. Do we have the setting? Check. Do we have the problem? Check. Now we're ready to drift into the middle. I love the middle. And I think probably as readers, you love the middle because that's where the good action takes place. In the sister story, here's how it works. There are 4 actions. The first one is when I clean the fish tank, that little one. And then that leads to setting up the dollhouse and fixing that. And then that leads to doing the laundry. And then that leads to something even more dramatic when I lean over her with the cockroach and drop it into her sleeping mouth. Now, you look at that action, step by step. And here's a trick. You want to make sure that in the middle, when you say, this happened, and so it happens all the time, you need 3 examples. So always think of the rule of 3. 3 little actions or 4 little actions, but 3 is important to build to that crisis. And what's the crisis? I'm locked naked out of the house, and I have no idea what to do. So right there, we have that beautiful center of the story. And that's probably about half of that story right there. Now we have to resolve the story. So now we start heading toward the ending. Resolution, solve the problem. Well, quite frankly, I could not solve that problem. I had to hide in the bushes all day, covering myself with dirt, twigs, and leaves. And then finally my father comes home, and there we have it right at the end. And this is key. The physical and emotional ending. Physical ending, finally got some clothes back on. Now the physical ending's always the obvious ending. And sometimes it actually will trick a writer. And you'll go, oh, that's the ending, got his clothes back on. No, no, no. You push beyond it. You're looking for the emotional ending. And there it is, the emotional ending. Me thinking to myself, I guess I'm not as smart as my sister. And that is the real ending and the real theme and idea of that story. So when I'm writing a story, I am just writing day after day after day. But then once I begin to capture everything, I bring the structure to it. You, when you're reading Writing Radar, you will read about capturing your stories. Take that to heart, because once you capture them, then this will be waiting for you. So don't worry about this. The book has it all, and the book will guide you step by step from capturing stories, organizing stories, and rewriting your story from beginning, middle, and end to make sure the characters are well described and the characters speak and we can see the environment and the location and that action rolls out crisply and in the reader's mind they see it like a beautiful, funny movie and all the way down to the end. So in Writing Radar, you find it, You write it, you organize it, you polish it, you publish it, and I read it. That's writing radar right there, and you've got it. So go to work. Get the journal and get started, because I need a good book to read. Thank you.